Hi. So I don't know about you, but I don't think that the story of Noah's Ark is literally true. I think it's an ancient tale and it's probably based on some truth. There probably was an ancient flood. But nevertheless, I don't think this is the story about how the entire world was flooded and that we are all the children of Noah and his family. Instead, I think this story has many secret details that are hidden within that tell us a lot about our own personal development. So if you're interested, stick around and we'll talk about how this story tells us about the development of our own conscience. All right, well, thanks for joining me in here today. I'm guessing that this image here is fairly familiar to you. This idea that we have an idea of something that we want to do, but there's this voice inside of us saying that we shouldn't do it. This is, folks, our conscience. And life hasn't always been this way. For example, when we were a kid, what did we do? Well, if we wanted a cookie and somebody else had it, we just bang. We just took it. There was no little voice saying I shouldn't take it. If you were in the bathroom and you just wanted to know how much toilet paper can I flush down the toilet, you just did it. You just did it. No conscience. No doubt every child has had their parents say to them, "Don't jump on the couch." I said this to my kid countless times, and yet, what does he do? He jumps on the couch. That there's something that just isn't there. And so what we can see from this is that conscience is something that happens over time. And this Noah's Ark story is what I would call a stage of life story. Now, in fact, really, all these early Genesis stories are like that. They tell us something about our own personal development and how we grow as a person. And Noah's Ark sets up with a series of events. So let's take a look at how the context of this story matters. Because we start off in paradise, we're in the Garden of Eden, we eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and we become tainted with evil. Everything was fine before then, but once we start to trust in ourselves, instead of trusting solely in God, we start to become under the influence of evil. It's not so bad at first, but what happens is we start to indulge in the guilty pleasure of trying to control other people. That's really the fundamental thing here, power and controlling of other people. And that what happens in the next story is Adam and Eve have two children, Cain and Abel, and these two are supposed to be a picture of balance and unity of our two main things in life, love and wisdom, our intellectual side and the things that we love to do. It's this balance. But what ends up happening? Well, we're under the influence of evil. And in this picture, Cain kills Abel, which shows that it's about us caring more about being right than actually loving other people. So Cain kills Abel. As this continues to grow, we become giants in our own mind. Genesis chapter 6, now it talks about giants in the land, and there might very well have been giants in the land at that time, but the truth of the matter is that, or the truth that we're supposed to see in the story is that we become inflated by our own ego. We become giants in our own mind. It's as if everything that we desire to do, we just do it. And therefore, the bad things that we do become even more problematic because we don't have that stop. We don't have that little voice saying, hey, that's not a good idea. So when we get to the Noah's Ark story, we see that the ark is a picture of our mind. It is adding structure to our life. It's adding structure. Think about it like this. When we have the story in Genesis where Adam is created and he's given control over the animals, we have animals on the ground that represent the things that we love to do, things that we desire to do, and we have the birds of the air. And you can kind of understand it like, your thoughts are up in the clouds and the things that you like to do are right here and right now and present with you. So God's command is to, gather all that up, one of each, male and female, and you put those into the ark. You are now adding structure. There's levels to the ark and there's compartments to the ark. And so these compartments enable us to say, oh, you know what? I have this desire. I have this animal. It ain't a good one. I can hold that in check and hear from my thoughts, hey, this is a bad idea. You shouldn't actually do this. This is why we get in the story in Genesis that we are supposed to control the animals, subdue them, rule over the fish of the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature on the ground. It's not about farming and controlling the environment of this world. It's about controlling the wild animals up here. Don't let them run free. Don't let them be in control of you. You've got to control the things in your own mind. Another feature of the ark is that it has a window at the very top. And this is a picture of how we access God, or maybe how God accesses us. But nevertheless, that's our communication point. And so God's light and his heat come down from above through the window into the levels of our mind. So you can see this is providing structure for us. But when the rain comes, this structure also helps us against the outside world. It provides us protection from the storms of life that come. When we get hit with this deluge of bad ideas or a storm of desire to do things that we shouldn't do, our mind, with its thoughts and its ideas, can be held together and held strong despite the storm. This storm was for 40 days and for 40 nights. And we see elsewhere in Scripture that the children of Israel were in the desert for 40 years. Jesus was tempted by the devil for 40 days. And we get this picture that 40 is about temptations. And this kind of temptation isn't the temptation of, oh, am I going to blow my diet by eating a bunch of cakes? It's not that kind of temptation. This is a temptation where you're worried about how things are going to unfold. You call into doubt whether God's words are actually going to come true. God says, oh, you're loved, you're great, we love you, but you're calling into question because you look around your life and you feel like, I don't feel very loved right now. And those are the kind of false ideas, because everybody's loved. Those are the false ideas that can come into us and cause us a storm in life. Call it depression, anxiety, worries. These are the kind of combats we have in life. But as that episode unfolds, eventually the waters abate and we start to see stones, which, it's not stones, but mountains. There's the top of the mountains. And they're made of stone because stone represents truth. Think about it like this. How does David beat Goliath? Well, he does it with a smooth stone. Jesus says, build your house on a rock. Well, this is a picture of exactly that. Building your mind on a rock. Have the foundation of your mind truth. That's really what conscience is. Your evil desire, your unkind desire, if you want to call it that, is saying, oh, go do this, go steal this, go say this bad thing about the other person. But the truth is, you shouldn't do it. It's not going to work out well. It might feel good for a moment, but boy, you're going to pay a price. That's what conscience is about. And when Emanuel Swedenborg starts describing this story in Secrets of Heaven, that's exactly what he says. He says, these mountaintops start to be seen when a person is being regenerated and is being given a conscience. And through conscience, charity. And that's important because you might recall, just a minute ago we said about how Cain and Abel, that story tells us about how Cain kills Abel, which is the killing of love in our life. Well, God is using this mechanism of conscience to bring back love. That we can actually stop and say, oh wait, that's a bad thing. Not going to do it. I'm going to do the good thing. I'm going to bring good back into my life. Now the process isn't complete yet because Noah sends out a raven. While the waters are abating, they're not gone yet. He sends out a raven, and the raven has a representation of seeking out God's knowledge through oneself. It's similar to the idea of using the serpent to seek out knowledge. But it's the idea of that we're still under the influence of our false ideas and beliefs. Versus then when Noah sends out with a dove, it's finally coming to the realization that I need to seek out God through the way he tells me to, and believing that God is the source of all life and that all truth comes from him. Once we have that, the conscience is complete because it's now operating in its proper way. The story ends by God giving us a rainbow and saying this won't ever happen again. And some people have said, well, why not? People have gotten to be bad in future times, but the reality is God doesn't have to do this story again because the conscience has been formed. There's no need to do it again. This process creates conscience, and so there's no need to do it again. You've already got the conscience. Things can go wrong, don't get me wrong, because, we can have conscience and, choose to let the bad guy win. And when that happens, conscience is knocked out. So, that gets resolved a different way. God comes back into our life in a different manner, and, that's a topic in a video for another time. For the point of this story, though, we just want to see that this Noah's Ark story isn't a literal true story, and there might be some truth in it, but it's the real wisdom and interesting thing about this story is that it's about a stage of life. Could be like, 10, 12 years old, 13, 14, kind of that time frame is what I see it as, but it's a development. It's a process. It doesn't happen, instantly. Conscience is developed over time, and it's there to help us stop just doing things impulsively so that we can stop and reflect on them and say, oh, you know what? I want to do this, I shouldn't, and it keeps us out of trouble. So that, my friends, is the story about the creation of conscience and how it navigates us through the storms of life and adds structure to our mind. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. If you've liked it, please click like. If you want to see more like this, do subscribe. I wish you all the best in your spiritual development. God bless.